Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. It is a rally cry, I tell you. Steve, pleasure to see you, my friend. Pleasure to see you as well, Jeremy. Walter's in the house. Those are the two bookends right now when it comes to the stability of CFN. Howdy, how's everybody doing? Hope you're not nearly as busy as I. Came back from Macintosh and immediately went on call, and let's just say it's been busy. Absolutely nuts. So I'll tell you right now, big shout out, tip of the hat to Steve and Walt that are doing a fantastic job. And also to you folks from CFN that are sending in all kinds of pics and videos and what have you. I mean, I absolutely love where our community's going and who's running it. I'll tell you, we got some of the best folks in the industry helping us out. And unfortunately, some of those folks, like Lawrence and like Jason, they're not going to be with us tonight. We kind of figured Jay was going to be busy. Lawrence, unfortunately, can't make it either. And I just want everybody to know that next Monday, I want to make sure that you all have a great Thanksgiving dinner with your family. I have been asked to partake in a family dinner that unfortunately won't allow us to do a live. Jim's going to be over at his daughter's, I'm sure, as well. So we're giving next Monday off to all of you. You've all deserved it, and we will come back with boots on the ground, and we'll hit the ground running, as they say, the following Monday. Eve, nice to see you. Lloyd's in the house. Ed McKenzie, yeah, baby. How you doing, my friend? Thinking Wednesday I might be able to come out and say hello to you, my friend. So looking forward to that. Sonia, you're one that you're the one I'm kind of speaking to. There's been a lot of folks that have been sending me messages on Messenger. I haven't been able to get them. I'm so sorry. But Sonia, I know you've got a long list of stuff that you've sent. I will definitely get to that tonight. I've got a lot of stuff to get tonight. James Shembry, I have your Tim Hortons card. We have you were the winner 2 weeks ago when your name ended up on the wheel for the decoy weight, and so we'll be getting that out to you. Plus, there's a couple other things I have to get done too this week. Needless to say, we've got a great show tonight. If you are looking for rigs, maybe you're not too familiar with certain rigs, and it's not so much about what you can. Well, obviously, they're all designed really to catch bass, but there's a whole bunch of other species that you can catch fish too. So Jim's going to be spending a little bit of time with us on that. Because there's so many options that we have available to us. And, for instance, like Walt, when he came out to the CFN retreat up at Horwood, not that familiar with the drop shot in it. And really it's one of those rigs that you sort of have to have tied. It's got to be part of your arsenal. You need to have drop shots because I'll tell you, right now, this time of year, they're outperforming just about anything else. Now, Jim might correct me on that, but as far as I'm concerned, drop shots, especially as we saw at the OFC Nation retreat and CFN retreat, it could be fished different ways, but I tell you, nothing beats a drop shot. It's by far right now the best. Manny, nice to see you, dude. Big shout out to Pal Castings. The one thing that we always ask is that you help out our sponsors, and Manny shared that pick with me today, buddy. Available at Pete's Tackle, fantastic jigs that you bought, and a reasonable price. That's the other thing. We're not trying to gouge you with the sponsors that we have. Everything's reasonable. Everything is not that expensive. It's very, very reasonable. But we're gonna include some of our sponsors tonight when it comes to certain rigs and what you can use, what you can look for, and how you can help them and us all at the same time. Nice to see you, Mark. Always a pleasure to see you, Mark. How you doing, my friend? You do, yeah. Again, well, 100%. We'll talk about ice fishing with drop shots. We'll be talking about all kinds of stuff, and of course, the link man, Steve Shaw. We'll be putting them up front and center for us. Greg, nice to see you. Haven't seen you in a while, Greg. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. So let's get to her. Let's get right at it, because there is so much to discuss. And as I said, we have got a full hour of Big Jim McLaughlin right after this word from our sponsor. Big Jim in the house. How you doing, my friend?
I'm alive.
Yes, you are, and we are so thankful that you are. Because telling you, even when you're not fishing, you are a busy lad.
There's always something to do,
Yeah, I noticed that you posted some pics from the Hall of Fame. There was obviously a ceremony. All the plaques went on the wall, I'm assuming.
Yeah, there was another one down there that they had where they put more guys in, which is really, really cool. That was neat because I had some stuff come up in my memories from when we went down and I got my award there, and it was really cool.
And saying, "Hey Jim, get off my spot."
Who's that? Where's the bat?
Big Eddie. Yeah, no kidding. Jim, it's as you mentioned, it was an honor to accompany you down there. It was an honor to be a part of that. And as I said, a lot of folks help out in many, many ways. And I want to take this second to send out a big shout out to Chris Church, who is a colleague of mine. He's looking after tonight while we're on the air. And also, he's also going to help cover for the day we get together this week.
What's this?
Your people haven't talked to my people? Oh, I thought that was all done. Yes, looking forward to Thursday. Jim, spending some more time on the water with you, and more importantly, learning at the same time, learning tons. If you ever get the opportunity to fish with this gentleman, don't pass it up, because you do what I do. At the end of it all, you're sitting back, poles, out of the water, and you're just watching, man. You're just watching greatness at work.
Maybe this year you get to watch me fall out of the boat.
No, we'll be good that way.
If I do, get your life jacket on quick if you don't have that.
So, Jim, tonight I thought it's something that, unfortunately, with Lawrence and Jay not coming, it was an opportunity that sort of popped up that I've been wanting to do with you for some time. There's a lot of folks out there that know a whole bunch of rigs about rigs and the various rigs that are used primarily for bass. But let's face it, these rigs work for a whole bunch of species of fish. So I want you to discuss each of them as we pull them up. We've already gone through this before we went live. And of course, if you have a favorite rod, a favorite reel, a favorite line, anything that's favorite to you that you'd like to mention, by all means, please throw it in. All right. So the rigs that we're going to be talking about, obviously, some of them you have seen. There are many different variations. You've got drop shots. You've got the Nico. You've got the Carolina rig. You've got the Texas rig. Like there's a whole bunch of all kinds of rigs that are available. This is, of course, the Shaky that has become very, very popular as it stands up underwater.
Huge in the States, eh?
It is, yeah.
They still don't use it up here. It's just monstrous in the States.
Yeah, 100%.
It's really cool too when you think of what they have now to show you how to do this stuff instead of trying to explain to people.
Yeah.
Used to try to explain to them. You'd take a half a dozen photos, and you got to remember we didn't have phones to pass pictures around and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you'd end up waiting to get your pictures developed and then have them printed in a magazine or something. And now, 10 minutes from now, you can have a whole bunch of pictures. How many times have I clicked my phone to you and sent you something?
100%.
And I still remember that first day a couple of years ago there when you sent me over the picture of the Tokyo rig.
Okay, all right. So we're going to start with the Tokyo rig. And I thought, what a great segue, Jim. As always, you're right on par, right on point. But as I said, there's 6 main rigs that I'm aware of. You're probably going to share a few others or variations to those 6. But as I said, what I really like to hear when it comes to the Tokyo rig, which has become very popular between Jim and I, simply because Scotty couldn't remember it the week after we had talked about it. So this rig has become infamous. But this is if you're going to tie it yourself. But VMC has a great setup out there, great presentation. It's all together. All you basically have to do is tie a line. Do you prefer to make your own Tokyo rigs, Jim?
No, not a chance. I'll show you why. And like I told you before, I don't work with VMC. For one thing, where it's all put together here with the little swivel, that's a welded ring. It isn't a split ring. So you've got your hook and you've got your little ball bearing swivel. The other thing is, this isn't just a piece of wire hanging down. See the swivel?
Yeah.
So the whole thing spins. The whole thing, like this twist, you could just see it turning. The whole thing turns, and that to me is just like gold. And then one thing I've done that I started to do, and I tell you, I came up with this on my own. And you'll see every Tokyo rig that I have has got every one I've been using or playing with or whatever. Whoops, I don't need that. Has got 2 sinkers on it. And I get on to doing that just to have. So when you throw that in the weeds, when you pitch it in the weeds, it goes down. So it's nice and rounded here. It sinks through, no problem. But coming back up, it would catch on the bottom of the sinker. So I started putting a smaller sinker, and in a lot of cases, a really small one. Of course, all the stuff I use is ultra tungsten, and I put a little red one on there. I got so bad using red sinkers for a while there. About 2 years ago, Chong showed up here one day, and he handed me a box that was the size of like a 12-pack of beer full of packs of red sinkers. Here, don't ever ask me for 6 packs again. And like everything I own almost has a red sinker on it. I don't need to show a teeth mark on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just it got to be a why not because it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Now there's 2 or 3 different rigs too. They've got finesse rigs. They've got heavy duty ones. I like to use the heavy duty one because I'm usually, when I use this, I like the heavier offset hook to hold the worm in place.
Gotcha.
The heavy duty weeds. You can see the sinkers down. You can see I cut this one off my rod. So it's like this. I had a guy, I was doing one of these things with a group a while ago, and I got a message from a guy after, and he said to me, "That's a pretty sloppy looking knot there, right?" And I says, "Well, that's like that. So in case I tied a bad knot, it won't slip through." I always leave a little bit, just in case it slips through, especially on the hook set. So that would be Texas rigged on those ones. So it would be like if this was a Tokyo rig, it would be like Texas rig. So you got it
Gotcha.
on there. But then VMC also has one for walleyes and smallmouth and stuff, where it's a finesse hook, and so you can fish your swim bait. That's a rhythm wave, so you can drag this along the bottom.
Mhm.
And guys, it's just like a bottom bouncer. I know a lot of guys fishing the St. Lawrence, and they use a 1 ounce tungsten on that, and they use it for walleyes
That's
because
awesome.
it's just like a bottom bouncer.
Yeah. And I have,
Fishermen that are pretty good fishermen, they get on, they they take things, and I'm not all the one for tinkering a lot, but there's certain little things that it can't hurt you to tinker. There's a lot of them out there, but no, Tokyo rigs are something that really, if you're not doing it for what they cost and for how effective they are, the way you can change the weights and things, you really got to get into them, because I'm telling you, it just becomes a way of life. It's just something that you have there. Like if I don't have a Texas rig on my heavy rod, I have one of those.
Wow. Sonia, great observation in regards to the weights. She's suggesting that if you could put the larger weight sort of as an umbrella over top of the smaller weight, but that's poured, right? That what you showed me is that
No, that's like that. But I've got the heavy one on the bottom to be sure it goes through really good.
Gotcha.
That heavier weight hanging on the bottom.
And is now a good time of year to be using a Tokyo?
Yeah, Tokyo rigs any time of the year.
Yeah.
Any time of the year. Yeah, I always like the heavier weight to be hitting first, so it spreads and it just makes everything go through. Because you got to remember, once that goes through, as soon as it hits, you should have slack line, and then you just drop your rod tip toward it, so it's got slack when it hits the surface of the water. It hits the weeds to go through. And if I'm fishing really heavy stuff, I might even actually pitch that like 15, 20 feet in the air to make sure that it has the speed coming down to go through the weeds. Because sometimes the weeds get so thick. There was nights out here this summer where I tossed that out, threw it about 10, 15 feet in the air, and all you heard was the splat. And I had a 3/4 ounce weight on it. It just hit the top and sat there. Wow. So you got to reel it back in, because it landed on the top. You got to pick all the moss and crap off, and then you do it again. You throw it an extra 10 feet, and it goes right through. And you always want to be sure that it goes to the bottom to start.
100%. Species of fish that you mentioned, obviously largemouth, smallies, walleye. Have you ever caught like a muskie or pike on
I've been bitten off a lot with them.
Okay.
So I know I don't think I've ever actually boated a toothy critter on one of those. So, but smallmouths, largemouths, walleyes. I have several of my buddies that fish catfish with them.
Interesting.
Catfish rig, just like you would for walleyes. Like they just they're even slower, and a lot of times they're casting. I know a lot of them they fish up in the Bonnechere River here off the Ottawa, up by Eganville. And they use that. They actually change the hook and put a bigger hook on, because the old catfish are crazy. They just slurp the whole works in. But these guys are catching a lot of cats in that 15-pound class, and the odd one close to 20. And that's a big fish. So you need something big and strong for it. That's when they're using the like I'd be using for the heavy duty weed.
Yeah,
using a 2 or 3 times strong hook in a lot of cases.
Mark is suggesting he's caught some ships on it as well. I love seeing this. I love hearing stuff like this. Sonia's saying, I've been using that since you spoke about it 2 years ago at the show at the International Center, Jim. It's one of my go-tos.
Awesome. That makes me feel good too, that people are, doing things and then talking about it, because it's there's just so many things out there you can do and talk about. You know what I mean? Like we could literally talk from now till next Monday night when you're not here. And you just go, and I'll just keep talking till the following Monday night.
It is so true, and yeah, you wouldn't miss a beat either. I don't think you'd even have to take a bathroom break the way you go. When it comes to the Tokyo rig, is it something that if you have, say, 5 dedicated rods, Tokyo rig is definitely on one of those rods on your boat?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, anytime I'm going to fish a weedy situation, my personal way of going about it, because you got to remember, all these things are just tools.
Yeah.
And once you learn to use them, the better you learn to use them, the more. Like I know we're going to talk about jigs here in a minute too, and I have so many people call me up and say, "Oh, I've been fishing with the," when I say a jig, I'm talking this type of stuff. Okay, I fish a jig, I never catch anything. And yet, if you were to ask, every fisherman who's ever fished a tournament as a boater what would your number one choice for largemouth be? I would think that probably 75% of them are picking a jig, if not higher. There's a few other things now. The guys have expanded what they do for largemouths now. A lot, like when I started, it was a Carolina rig and a Texas rig, and all a Carolina rig is a Texas rig with some space between the sinkers, so the bait's back there floundering around, looking like something easy to catch.
100%. 100%.
And it works really, really good in deep water. But jigs are, let's do it right now. It's something that everybody sees them out there. I've got like something that I really, really like is just I usually fish. When I was fishing tournaments and that I get into it, I've fished the odd more like a little bit more of something that would look like a sunfish.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of orange on the belly. Here's one from our buddy Mark up there at Weapons of Mass Destruction in Petawawa. A little bit of orangey chartreuse and stuff on the bottom, look like a perch or a bluegill or something. In fact, I think he calls this bluegill. It's funny, guys will say, "Oh, it looks just like a bluegill." They'll eat it, but the bluegill has crawdad tails hanging out the back.
So baits like that, and I have seen Jim work those in live and in person. One of the funniest comments I ever heard came from the front of the boat. Jim turned around, he said, "Scotty, all of these bass are living in a condominium. You know what the problem is?" "No, Jim, they're all living on the first floor." The weeds were like 8 feet tall, I would say, from the bottom, and you were pitching them into some heavy cover. And it was at that point, everyone, that I just put the stick away and watched the master play.
You've never really seen me hit it in the deep weed.
No.
Where when you see me pull out the little marker and drop it, so I know exactly where I am. I don't have to look away from at the track on the GPS or anything. In fact, I'm going to treat you when we go out on Thursday. I'm not even going to put electronics on the boat.
Whoa! Wow.
Deal?
That's impressive. Well,
now, if you hit anything when we sink, though, you have to swim back. Get on your back.
Bring a paddle. Got it. All right, check. Bring a paddle.
I'd be sitting on you rowing. Hey, come up for air now.
So before we go on, obviously we talked about jigs. We've talked about the Tokyo rig. When it comes to the Tokyo rig, some folks have said about live bait, using live bait. Yeah, I can see it as a great live bait. Yeah. Is there a certain kind of plastic outside of the paddle tail? Like, do you like using a longer worm, something that's got a lot of meat, like a big chunk, like beaver tail or something like that?
If I'm going to use it like you're talking about for walleyes and that,
or anything, yeah.
And I think you're probably going to see me the majority of the time with some kind of a swim bait, like a rhythm wave or something that's like that. Now that's a really little one.
Yeah.
But the 3.8 is my, absolutely my favorite. It's have I got one here? Probably not. No. Geez, I did a big tidy up here this week and I'm lost. It just got to the point where I had so much stuff, and I went and I got a box out of the garage. I must have put 50 things in it, and I put it in the truck. And I saw these two kids fishing down by Gananoque, and I got out and I gave them the box.
Wow!
And they freaked. Now there was just there was a Tokyo rig with a bait on it. There was Texas rigs. There was everything had a piece of line hanging off it. It's all stuff I've used and cut off,
Yeah.
But and then I almost gave this away. I didn't realize it was in the box, and I took it back out. It's my my stealth bladed Z-Man.
Oh wow! Yeah.
This one, that's the bigger rhythm wave there with just a little bit cut off the front to snug it up. But I almost gave this one away. It was in the box. I plucked it back out. I was like a blue heron picking something out of a box.
That's hilarious. Yes, and your time goes back almost as far as Jim's when it comes to what you've seen when it comes to technology and the advancements of it. Before electric motors, he used a push pull, very similar to that. You see someone fishing the flats in Florida.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No push pulls. Rocky and I were famous for that because it was always him pushing and me fishing. We talked about it one day. I said to him one day, he's at the back of the boat, and Rocky was a master push puller, a master. So he did it. He could have worked the flats, like he was a master at it.
Wow.
And I was okay at it, but it's just he was a master at it. And the reason that he did it was to put me at the front of the boat, to have the boat up at the back a little more. Okay, and it was legit. It was legit. It just helped the boat go through the weed easier.
You know what? Whatever works, and it's nice to know that our size. I was talking to some of the guys at work today, and they're saying, Scotty, we're going to be out in the sandbox doing some training tomorrow. You might want to bring an extra shirt. I said, yeah, no, 100%. Because, you know, the one thing that I have not been able to do is find the zipper of this down coat that I can't seem to get rid of. And with the temperatures going to be around 30 tomorrow, I'm going to need 2 or 3 shirts. But I digress. Listen, that is the Tokyo rig that we talked about. Of course, jigs, the one that you spoke of right at the beginning, of course, is the Texas rig.
Yeah.
This
simple rig, eh? The sinker. Simple rig. Yeah, show it right there.
Nice. I like that knot. Interesting knot. But yeah, and as I said, I see a lot of these videos with craws, but worms is big. Is there any other kind of plastics that work really well?
You know, our buddy Mike there at Water Wolf Bass Magnet. I mean, that's something that he came up with this year. It's actually meant to be fished like this. We had talked about it at the beginning of the year on a jig head because it's just basically a shad body. And so I went out the back with it and I Texas rigged it and clobbered them. So, you know, it's just one of those things. And that's a dirty color too. That's a good.
That is a nice color.
I'm not big on fire tails and stuff like that. If I fish for pike or something, yeah. Like if I was to go out the back to fish for pike, and I've done it, my chatterbait would turn to that. Just fishing, as I call it, you know, ugly.
Yeah.
One of those things. I forgot. I got to tell you the rest of the story about the push pole. So I'm at the front of the boat, and Rocky's pushing, and I'm catching fish. We're on him. I found these fish in the pads, and he's pushing, and I've got a couple that this is in the first 20 minutes of the morning. I got a couple that are probably 4.5.
Ooh.
Tore them out of the pads and were just jacked. So if somebody's catching fish, we don't care. I mean, I'll stand with the net and wait if that's what you want me to do.
Yeah.
Catching fish. So I wasn't thinking, and I had left the electric down because we were kind of on the edge, and he's fishing too. He's not just poling. So I moved the electric as he goes to pole, and I don't think. And all of a sudden I hear, hey, and I look back, and he's on the pole with his legs around it, sliding down real slowly. Somehow I got the boat away from him, and I managed to, I just spun it or just stepped on it, punched it around, and hit it backwards, and it bumped into the pole, and he jumped back in the boat. But he was actually sliding, like you can almost hear his sneakers. Cartoons,
Oh, wow.
We still yuck about that almost every time we talk.
That is hilarious.
We talk, we yuck about that. Yep.
That's amazing. So Texas rig, when it comes to Texas rig, what came first, the Texas rig or the Carolina rig?
I would assume the Texas rig, but I don't know. A Carolina rig is like, it's like so versatile. A lot of people don't realize, and you don't see it. A lot of these guys that are fishing in the St. Lawrence, the smallmouths in the deep water, are fishing with the Carolina rig.
Gotcha.
And it's still something, they still try to hide it because in deep water, it's a heavy current. You can't present the drop shot that well. It's hard to drag a tube in the St. Lawrence in that heavy current in the deep water, but you can put on an ounce and a quarter tungsten weight, 20-pound braid, so it cuts the water, 16, 17-pound fluorocarbon leader, and you're in business.
Yeah.
You know that picture of me that I have holding up a giant smallmouth with a red shirt on?
Which one?
With a red shirt on.
Yeah.
That picture, a lot of guys looked at me and said, "What were you doing? You're holding a bait casting reel." It was the Carolina rig. You know, like it's just one of, you know, people don't realize there's so many other presentations. Like I said, although it may not be the thing that you do all the time, you know, it's something that really, really works.
So that it brings me to a great point, something that we were going to talk about when it comes to the Tokyo rig. What kind of rod are you using? You using a medium, heavy, fast action tip? What you look?
I'm going to use like a 7'6" minimum, heavy, medium heavy to heavy rod, depending on how heavy the cover was, and if I'm going to go to the real heavy stuff, I started, I think it's 4 years ago now, using a Loomis IMX, and it's 7'11", and I swung like a 9-pound boat fin in the boat with it.
Jeez.
I got it coming toward me,
Yeah.
but I swung like a 9-pound boat fin in the boat, and numerous 5 to close to 6-pound largemouths, and they just I'm fishing. I put 50-pound Max Quattro on, which means it's 25% thinner than the regular Power Pro. So I've got the strength. People have no concept how strong 50-pound braid line is.
Oh,
They have no concept.
Get it tangled in your prop or your electric motor prop.
Get it tangled in your hand on a rainy day.
You'll find out how strong it is in a real hurry. Carolina
That was
rig.
the fish we were talking about.
That's the one. Yeah.
And look at the rod and reel.
That's amazing.
Almost a flipping rod. It's a pitching rod. It's just a little lighter action.
Now with the Carolina rig, with the Texas rig, what kind of rod is it similar to what you'd be using?
Same type of stuff. Yep.
New stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I'm big on the Zodius rods. Scotty, I've got to the point I was just rigging this one here to fish. So here, this is a 175, so it's 7'5", and it is a heavy, and it's good for 12 to 30-pound test line. It's a Zodius, and I was going to rig a jig on it for being out with you on Thursday because I haven't fished a jig with you enough, and I was going to go a little lighter because it's not the heaviest one, and I was going to put on 40-pound.
Nice.
Max Quattro.
Wow.
So see, I don't fib.
No, and lots of questions that are coming up here. Sparkus, I like that one. Ed McKenzie, I use a toothpick through the tip of the bait, obviously to hold it on. Ed says he puts a rubber stopper.
I like the rubber stoppers. We used to be famous for toothpicks. Guys always asked us why we had a nail clipper around our neck. It was to trim the toothpick.
Yeah. Because
you push it through, trim it, and then trim it again. And then a good buddy of mine, a guy from the States, I was talking to him about it, Ernie Janderko, who's the guy I often credit with putting the finishing touches to me and Rocky as largemouth fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. He's a crusty old guy now, boy. I hope he's not watching. Yeah, he was a great guy. He helped us so much. He did so much teaching us. Yeah. But he came to me one day and he has to do that. And he says to me, the toothpicks, just keep them in a pill bottle. He said, lose them. I said, why? And some guys at Bassmaster way back when, one of the first video type things that they ever did, it was part of a VHS tape. And they did all these tests of using plastic and showing the hook set in the fish's mouth. And if the plastic can't move, you don't always get a hook set.
Interesting.
It acts like a weed guard because you've Texas rigged it. You've rigged that plastic to protect the hook. And if the plastic doesn't come down, it makes it a little more of a pain in the butt to fish them. But it definitely, I stopped doing that. I even for years and years, I got on to not using a hook. And if I was fishing tournaments, I would go back and use a straight shanked hook for the simple reason that bend in that hook,
mm-hmm.
When you set the hook and that comes through the fish's mouth, what does it do to the fish's mouth just before the point gets into the roof of his mouth?
I'm going to say the same as with the drop shot. It opens it up.
It pops his mouth just a smidge, right? Just a smidge. And if you're using a really big sinker, it can do the same thing too, like an 1 1/4 sinker.
Mm-hmm.
I see some guys in Florida, they're using 2-ounce sinkers. You know how big a 2-ounce sinker is? It's like this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a chunk of lead or tungsten. And it pops out of the mouth. And that's, one of those things I've looked at and said to myself, for sure. I like the ease of it because it holds the plastic in place a lot better. So I'll get by with it because if I miss a fish now, what does it mean? It means nothing to me. And there's another thing, and I'm going to do a video about this too. I see so many people, and I see guys in the States, and I've been looking at this and thinking about it. I can show you exactly here where my mind is thinking about this. So there's your weed guard. So I know a lot of guys will trim it right here.
so that it's flush with the hook.
So it's flush with the hook. And I used to do that at one point too. And then I started thinking, when that's in a fish's mouth, so he eats it, he bites down on it. When he hits the top of that weed guard, or he closes his mouth, you go to set the hook, so the jig starts to come out of the fish's mouth. The roof of his mouth hits that and pulls it down, and what does it do? Takes it right out of the way just in time for the hook getting there.
Right.
If you trim the weed guard off here, then the hook point might be a little bit exposed here, but then the weed guard is also stiffer. Like if you take a branch that's 3 feet long,
yeah,
and you have it 3 feet long and you hold it and you bend it, and then you cut a foot off it and you try to bend it, it ain't bending so easy anymore.
No, you're right.
It's stouter, it's shorter, it's harder to bend something that's shorter. And that's just been in my mind. I've been thinking about that for a long time. And that's why you'll see me, all the jigs that I have here that I dug out a whole bunch of new ones, and they all have full weed guards on them to get that effect. And they're very, very, very light weed guards. There's not much to them at all. They're very, very light. Eh?
What a great tip! Something that it makes so much sense, but
yeah,
didn't think about it until you said it.
Yeah. And the other thing, I had another guy that I talked to about this, and he told him that a guide in Texas told him always keep the weed guard long. They even use them longer. So once this passes the fish hooks and this comes back up, it pushes against the roof of the fish's mouth. Apparently, it was his thought, and kept the hook from being. It just secures the whole thing a little bit more. And it's just one of those things. They fishermen will tinker with stuff and do anything that they can. But that's just something, because I mean, let's face it, a jig like that, whether you call it a flipping jig or a pitching jig or whatever, it's it's 75-80% of the largemouth guys would, if they had one thing for the rest of their life.
You're 100% right, and I'm so glad you guys are having some great questions, some great comments. Thanks so much for that. Continue to come with all that, because that's what makes this interactive.
Yeah, I'll go have a look either later tonight or tomorrow.
I appreciate that, Eric McAllister. But this is a great segue to our next rig, which of course I think is one of the more famous. I mean, you can talk at great length about all these rigs, but when it comes to a multi-species rig, outside of maybe the drop shot, the Carolina rig is something that is fished with, whether you're in saltwater, whether you're in freshwater, and obviously the weights change. But the Carolina rig is one of the most versatile rigs out there, whether it's a live bait presentation or you're fishing something finesse and slow. But Eric comes up with an interesting question. With all the different lures out there, how often do you still fish a Carolina rig?
Not as often as I used to.
There you go.
Extensively for smallmouths in the Big River, if I'm in a heavy current situation. But I was watching a thing a few weeks ago with the Lindners there from Angling Buzz, and they were talking. They're fishing in the fall, and they're fishing with 3 8-ounce Carolina rigs for walleyes along the edge of weed lines.
Interesting.
There they are. I mean, it's a complete different thing. You go to Rice Lake, boom, there you go. You can hammer them doing that in a place like Rice Lake. Yeah.
100%.
And I've done it. Hey, first fish I ever caught was on a Carolina rig, was in Rice Lake.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, Jim, like there's so many, there's just so many variations you can have with this bait. When it comes to the weight, you could have a bell sinker. You could have what they have here at Tungsten. The bead. I know people, it's something that they don't think is that important. How important is that bead with this rig?
Well, the bead's there to protect the knot, because you usually have a really heavy sinker. So I know a lot of guys now, I suppose it makes a little bit of noise too. But I tend to use, I put in a couple of rubber bobber stops in the same place as that. I stick a couple of them in there, and it protects the knot really, really well. And I'll put a bead after it, maybe so that the sinker hits the bead, but the rubber stopper is what's protecting the knot.
Right.
Because the plastic bead's still pretty heavy, and when you really get the impact is if you set the hook and catch a fish, or even if you don't catch a fish. If the sinker's sitting this far away from the swivel and you set the hook, man, it's hitting that. It's coming up to it awful fast, really banging on it, and that's the reason for that.
I want to say when I was a youngster or younger, let's say, this was my first introduction to the importance of fluorocarbon. I never really used it before, but I used the Carolina rig many times because I want to say the Linders, thankfully, were the first ones to really show me how this worked. And then, of course, you saw it in the Bass Tournament Trail. But this is where fluorocarbon really came in because, of course, you attach a line. Is there?
See, they're using a swivel there too. That's it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I wanted to ask you. Is it important to use the swivel? I know you always talk about.
I don't do it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. I don't think I don't think it's going to hurt your fishing. I don't think it's going to hurt your fishing. If you rig your plastic really nice and straight, it's good. But I used to use a ring, but ball bearings, like you have to use something obviously in there to attach the two. But I had welded rings, which I spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And I really liked those welded rings. I ran out of them and went back to using the swivel. And if you're going to use a swivel, be sure you use a good one.
Makes sense.
Don't go for the 89-cent brass swivels. That's something that you use when you're fishing for catfish or something. And, if you want to be at your best and not worry about cutting your line and stuff like that, it really helps.
100%. And I'm sure Corey out on the West Coast, Carolina rig or a variation of that is someone that I'm sure you use with live bait, especially. I see it a lot down in Florida, or at least a variation of it. Jim, when it comes to bass, is there a particular stick that you prefer using with a Carolina rig?
Something more like a pitching rod, so like the same as a flipping rod, but just perhaps a medium heavy, even down to a medium. But I go up to, I would like 7.5 foot minimum.
Right.
So you got lots of slack. When you take the slack up, the longer the rod is, the faster you take the slack up. And that's really important to get a good hook set, especially in heavy current, because people don't realize the current. They talk about fishing current. And I fish current. There's places in the river down there I told you about when I was out with Gussie there. And the look on his face, he was shocked. He didn't realize you could be moving that fast in the water when we went past the marker buoy. Like we were going 5-6 miles an hour.
Wow.
Trying to drift. Yeah. Just in this one little area. There's one little area where if you look at the hydrographic maps, it comes out of really deep water and it goes up onto a flat. So there's a lot of water coming up out of that depth. You got the same volume of water, but it's got way less to go through. And it's really neat when you come up on it from down the river and you're looking, you actually see the water goes up, right? It's higher. It's held up behind it because it can't get through fast enough and it speeds up. But you see one of those big cans there, they're probably 15 feet high from where they are in the water to how high they are up. And the thing is going back and forth in the current so fast that you can hear the swooshing of it in the water. You don't want to hit that. That's what we did with
No, you don't. Mark, you're used to it. I know 5 to 6 mile an hour is what you're used to fishing in St. Lawrence. Stanley's asking a great question. When it comes to the Carolina rig, is there a specific size hook that you recommend over another?
Yeah, in line with the bait, Stanley, 3/0. It could be a 2/0, 3/0, 4/0. Like one of the things that we used a lot when we Carolina rigged was, I think this is a Zoom craw. And you can see the shape of it. It's a different one. It's got those skinny craws. I just stuck this on the back of the jig. Once I use something and I break the front of it up, I use them for trailers and stuff like that because they're always panfish are pulling the legs off and everything. I got 500 bags in the garage, but I'll use them over. But used to take that color right there. It was called, I think it was called Pumpkin Party or something like that.
Pumpkin Party. Love it.
And you take that and dip the claws. And it was because of fishing down 30 feet, 25, 35 feet. You wanted a little more visibility because it's starting to get darker. And we would dip the claws in the dye for plastic. Just give a little shake there, and then they'd be bright. And that's what we'd fish with those craws. But yeah, and we'd put a 2/0 hook with those, and we'd use one of the owner hooks with the little screw on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you could screw it onto the hook, and it stayed in place. Because that heavy current like that, sometimes you feel bites, and you set the hook, and there's nothing there. And I think that they come by it. Smallmouth just make passes at it, like at Mach 4. They just come zinging by.
Now, any of these rigs that we've talked about so far, would you use a circle hook for any of them?
No. Yeah. Oh, if I was fishing catfish with a Carolina rig, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about catfish in Carolina. The first time I ever used them, my buddy Gary, we're out there in the auto. Hey, yeah, missed them. And I get a snag and I'm changing the hook and I look at the package and it says right across the back of it in a big sticker, do not set the hook, just increase rod bend or something. So the very next one, I just go like this and away we go. We learned how to use circle hooks, eh?
It's
Saltwater guy could have told us that and saved us a lot of grief.
it's so true. It is so true. And you learn very quickly using circle hooks.
Well, I often joke about spending less money on stuff and spending more money on the manual to operate it, and that would have been true with those hooks.
Yeah, 100%. Mark, we'll get to your tandem soft plastic at the end because that's exactly what we want is any rigs that are out there that folks didn't hear about tonight that you're using that you're finding success with. But that tandem rig, I know Jim and I have talked about it before. We showed a video of how to rig it, how it works in the water. And yeah, it looks like a killer presentation. Moving right along, of course, this is one that has gained a lot of popularity, something that is talked about at great length. And I know if you have 3 rods on your boat, one of them is tied with a Ned rig. Very straightforward presentation. It's basically a jig head with half a plastic. The whole idea, obviously, Jim, you'll explain it, is the bait sits upright. So as you're jigging it along the bottom, it sits up in the strike zone for the fish. Anything else that you'd love to add with this? Because I know it's very popular with you.
You just need a floating plastic. I mean, it's a pretty simple little thing to use. That's all you need. I've got one that has a little weed guard. It's a tungsten head. Took that off one of the rods. It's a finesse, like a finesse type thing.
Yeah.
And I've got an owner head here. What is it they call a blockhead? Yeah, they're really cool. They're offset, so you can Texas rig them, and they've got a really long offset to them. So when you Texas rig them, they're really nice. It keeps them in a straight line. And see, there's one of those things when you use one of those. That's a yammy fish there from Jackal. There's nothing wiggling there.
Yeah.
There's nothing wiggling. Like people always think things, they see something in the water, it's wiggling. Things don't have to wiggle to catch fish. Eh? That's a completely different thing. But there's something that you've heard me joke about these so many times about you'd be out fishing with the same thing with a twister tail, and the fish would bite the twister tail off. So what would you do? Oh my God! Into the box, got to put a new one on, and now we buy them without a tail on it and catch the fish on them.
It's so true. You get broomsticks.
We are a fickle bunch.
Yeah, you're getting them cut in half. When it comes to the Ned rig, you mentioned it in terms of whatever plastic you use, it should float. Obviously, some of the plastics that you enjoy are Z-Mens and Jackals. Yeah, Jackal, you love your Jackals. Any other baits that you have seen recently, heard about, someone speaking to you in regards to a plastic that they've used?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of guys use like what used to be referred to as a shaky worm.
Yep.
Just a little 4.5 inch worm. Really flexible, usually hand poured. Not always, but a lot of times they were hand poured. They work really well. Like I'm talking like really well. It's
I've seen these things.
Yeah. Gutsy's big on those Sparkus. He's huge on them. The little hula sticks. Looks just like a yammy fish, except it's got 4 or 5 little tails, half a dozen little tails on the end.
Something that I wanted to mention too, and it's a great opportunity. Pow Casting, which is of course a big sponsor of ours, they have started to pour their own Ned heads, and there is a wide variety. And this is the thing, when it comes to, what weight do I get? Which weight do I use? I'll tell you this, at the end of the day, Pow Casting puts it together in a nice little gift pack like this. It's got all of the sizes you need. So depending on, water, speed, wind, whatever it is that is going to be a variable that changes up your presentation, reach out to Pow Casting because, as I said,
it's cool to get a kit like that too, because you may have the favorite ones that you use.
Yeah.
But it's good to have a kit so you've always got stuff covered. Sometimes these guys that are fishing in the elites, they look in their boats and they're absolutely blown away by the amount of stuff that they have in the boat. Like the compartment in the front isn't for life jackets and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like it used to be, you know what I mean? That's nothing but tackle now.
Yeah.
It's full. There could be $20,000 worth of tackle in that compartment. They have everything that they could ever use. How much of it do they use? I dare to say in a season, 25% of it maybe. they might go to a box, certain box, because these guys are cued in and they know what to do on given lakes. There's subtle variances, and that's why if you go to one of these guys and you're in a garage or their fishing room with them, they'll have plain old boxes stacked up like I have out in the garage here. Probably like I've got probably 200 of them out there, and written on the end they'll have lake names, because you got to remember they're fishing all over the country, and there might be little idiosyncrasies that they like to try to put in their favor. Because as I've explained to you this so many times, it's a series of little things that make a big thing happen. Yeah. And it truly is the secret. People do not understand that for some reason. They just go back. Like, I mean, I'm having a field day right now. I'm going to make my whole seminar at the Sportsman Show about atrocious knots. You remember some of the pictures I've been showing you, the knots I've been gathering? I got to show you one I got the other day here. I hope it's nobody that's watching. Because I'm bad. I love for this now.
I'll tell you, I usually get these, Monday, Tuesday morning. I'll get a picture of somebody, and all I do, I laugh every time I see it because I know exactly how Jim's reacting. But needless to say, I get shared a lot of really interesting stuff from our good buddy Jim. And sometimes I'm able to hold my coffee in, and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes it's all over the wall.
I don't know where.
Sparkus, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So the lighter, the better. And as I said, for a walleye guy who uses a jig head and always loves to have contact with the bottom, it is something that I'm going to have to get better at. I've watched our good buddy Brad from POW work the Ned, and yeah.
Here's what a knot's supposed to look like.
Yep.
Okay. Like perfect, eh?
Yep.
I got to find this. You're going to die. Of course, I won't be able to find it now because I'm looking for it. But anyways, it's just one of the most atrociously tied knots.
I'm sure it's mine. I'm sure it's one of mine. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's not one of yours. It's one of somebody you know. I hope they're not watching.
Oh.
Now, the knot's not that bad. It's having the snap swivel twice the size of the lure leading to it.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. No, I don't know who it is. I know. And
I might even put their picture up. I'll put their picture up with the red liner on it with the line through. Do not let this man rig your baits.
See, this is why we say in the very beginning, we try to educate, not humiliate. But as I said, unfortunately, there are some things that they stick out like a sore thumb. And we're hoping, as I've said to a lot of people, we're talking about the Gaddy. Like we have not fulfilled our obligation to teach all of the anglers, because there's still anglers out there doing things wrong. That may have caught a fish. What Jim just showed you may have caught a fish, but
no offense, those are butts.
It's just like he said about 20 minutes ago. Those subtle changes can make the difference between catching a lot or catching a few. So yeah, no, absolutely. And yes,
so there's basically two. I don't know what one you got coming up next there.
Ed says it's not me. It's not me. I bet you we're going to see a lot of that right now. It's not me. It's not me either. Oh, Steve says, "Oh boy, I know that rig." So I'm hoping it's not our good buddy Steve. I can't imagine that it is. What's coming? Yeah, what's coming up next are two rigs that are fairly new to me. One I've never heard of, and I'm hoping that you're going to be able to share the Canadian version of it, because I've never heard of the chicken rig. But obviously the Nico rig, for those who have used it, is not something new. It's been around for a little while, but this is a variation. So that's like, it's almost like a Ned rig head in the chicken. Yeah. And then, as I said, you feather this hook through.
Yeah, you're just Texas rigging it, really. Yeah.
That's interesting. Has anybody else used what the chicken rig? Do you have
I've
another
heard of that? I wasn't quite sure when you mentioned it what it was. I knew I'd seen it, heard about it. It just looks a bit goofy to me.
Yeah.
But the Nico rig, there's no ifs, ands, ors, or buts. Like, that's something that, that's a flick shake on there. And when you put it on the ring, something that you want to do is don't just hook the ring. I see a lot of guys, maybe some gals, got to include the ladies. So if you put it on just the ring, there's a lot of play on it, can move around. So what I'll do is when I put it through there, I'll get it into the plastic a little bit.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it into the plastic a little bit like that. It just sort of holds the whole thing together more.
Yeah.
And then what we generally do is we've got the little piece of lead that you stick in the end of the worm, and that's the weight that keeps it down. Now, this cool little thing here they brought out a couple of years ago has that piece of lead on it. Steve's texting me here.
Oh, no, trust me. He's dying to know who it is.
So this is something new that I saw come out and I had to jump on, was putting a couple of, have a little hole in the lead, same piece of lead, just a couple of strands. So when it goes along the bottom, it looks almost like a jig with a long trailer, you know?
Wow.
And first cast I took with that was in the little lake you pass going to town here.
Yeah.
That's the one where you see me with all the pictures with the red shirt on. And it's, you know, I just caught the heck out of fish with it, but it's just one of those, there's so many things to use and I don't get out enough anymore.
Yeah.
That I don't get a chance to use them all. That's why I really wanted to use the jig, eh? And then the other one we were talking about, Scotty, before we went on was like a punch rig.
Yes.
Whoops.
Yep. This is what Jim is talking about right here. This is.
See, they're using a separate skirt over the Texas rig.
Yeah.
So they're sliding a skirt down the line to hang over the sinker. But I've always used the ultra tungsten rig that comes with the ultra tungsten, and it has the skirt on the bottom of the sinker already rigged.
Gotcha.
So then you'd have this like this. You put your line through.
Yeah.
Try on your hook, put your plastic on, pull it up against it, and you've basically got a Texas rig jig.
That's brilliant.
And that's pretty heavy right there. That's probably, I bet that's 3/4 of an ounce because there's a lot of it hidden in the thing.
Right.
But you can hear it.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of weight there. Not like the big jig head when you drop it, for effect. And like, you know, they come in all different sizes. You don't have to use it just for punching. They come in, you know, like 1/8 ounce and smaller ones.
Yeah.
You know, I have a buddy of mine that fishes soft, you know, like a fluke bait.
Yeah.
You know, Texas rig weightless. He fishes a fluke on the back of these, really light, like a 1/16 ounce.
Interesting.
Just twitching it along, and the thing flares out and it darts around and moves around. But those two right there, of all these things, though, this here really amazed me. The number of fish it took, it really amazed me.
I'd have to agree because it's not something I would.
Like I see, it looks like a jig.
Yeah.
You know, the plastic up around it is what it looks like. It's just the same, same type of thing. But it's something that works really well. But I got to tell you, at this time of the year, the big thing is because the fish they're not really settled in for winter or even close to it yet. You've got to fish horizontal, and you've got to fish lots of water because you've got to find them. They're not sitting where they used to be. And I'll tell you, this is when green weed becomes the key, becomes the absolute key.
You heard it here first.
You got to find it. Like, I mean, you know, you saw when we fished that big flat last year, the way you go along for 15, 20 casts, nobody get anything, and then all of a sudden 2, 3 fish, boom, boom, boom. Well, see, if I was fishing in a tournament, not with 3 guys in a boat.
I've just pointed at 2, 3 fish. Yeah, he would catch them.
Am I turning red? You're embarrassing me. But I would have slowed right down. I would have went to that patch of green weed. I don't know whether you remember the dock with the orange pail on it.
I do. Yeah.
Like there was a big patch because every time we passed on those lines I made, you got in front of that dock, everybody got a bite.
And you mentioned it. I don't know how many times you mentioned it, Scotty. We're not going to catch anything here. These weeds are not what I'm looking for. They were black. They looked like they were on their way out.
It just wasn't healthy anymore.
Yeah, just didn't look healthy. Mark, he talked about using the chicken. So I you know what, Mark, I applaud you, tip of the hat, because I'd never heard of it until tonight. But the chicken rig was not his favorite. Never used again. Marcus brought up something. A hook should always be hook out away from the plastic.
If you can, yeah. That's one of the things that I like about these. The jelly shot is that when you get it hooked in here, because it's got all the, I don't know whether you can see it there.
Yep.
The way the hook has all those little ridges, you can hide the plastic. You can hide the hook point. You can see it's still sticking out there. I don't know whether you can see that.
Yeah.
That's going.
Yeah.
You see the way the hook point's still out?
Yeah.
But it gets hidden. It just smushed up against those, and it comes through the weeds, especially if the weeds are healthy. There's nothing worse at this time of the year when the weeds start to get, when they're dead and like they're not crispy, so to speak. So they don't break. They just wrap around everything, and it just becomes a pain in the butt. You can just tell it when you're reeling a rattlebait, and all of a sudden you just feel, and you know it's just got a bunch of slimy weed on it. And then all of a sudden you hit a bunch of weed and you give it a little pop and it all comes off. You know it's hard. You know it's probably still green. And it's once again, it's the little things like that. Little things like that. You're not wasting a cast. You know, you keep it coming.
No, you're right. Jeremy is asking a question. I think I have the answer for this, but I'm going to ask you to answer it for him. Which rig would you use for a worm that has been inflated?
So you mean he's meaning like a live worm, I guess.
100%.
Oh, a Lindy rig.
Yeah.
Same thing, just a hook, line, sinker.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to lift and a really small hook. Really small hook.
I would say the only rig that we've talked about here that I would suggest for an inflated worm would be the Carolina. That would probably be
because that's basically what a Lindy rig is.
Right. Yeah. It would be the Carolina. But as I said, chicken rig is a slow death. Yeah, I could see that without beads and a blade. Yeah, I could see that being a slow death hook, 100%. Now, this is the one that I think everybody has. If again, top three when it comes to tide presentations, if you had three to choose from, Ned seems to be a hot one. Drop shot, it's got to be at the top of the list. I would think it's for you as well, Jim.
Yep.
So
something I've been cheating myself the last few years. I actually rigged it, and then I went out and I forgot to use it. I rigged myself a heavy drop shot, like really heavy. Like I'm talking on 16 pound test fluorocarbon.
Yeah. And
I was intending 100% to go out and give it a real go, and I don't know what I ended up doing, but I didn't get to use it. It was over on Newborough Lake here, which is that kind of place that would just light up in. I know it. Because you catch so many largemouths fishing for smallmouths there on spots you would associate with smallmouths. I'm not talking about the offshore open water stuff over 60 feet of water. I'm talking about the edge of weeds and stuff like that. You catch so many largemouths, and I just wanted something a little bit heavier. I never got to do it, but will you shorten that drop shot up a little bit? Keep your plastic, within maybe 15, 18 inches of the bottom, which a lot of drop shots are too. And you have to use a heavier weight. A lot of times you'll see guys use a bell sinker. Yeah. Something like that, or a bank sinker or something like that. Just something that's going to add a little more weight and stay on the bottom there.
So with that extra weight, are you using a stiffer rod with a fast action tip? Okay.
Yeah, and I would probably even go to a bait caster.
Is this where you would step up the size of the rod as well? Like you go to
I'd probably use a fairly long rod. I'd probably use something like a light pitching rod, actually.
Yeah.
Because you're using, you're trying to apply it in heavier conditions.
Yeah.
So it's not like drop shot where you have a nice light limber rod and 9 times out of 10 the fish are out in the open and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You hook up a 3 or 4 pound largemouth right on the edge of the weeds. He's gone in the weeds before you know it. That's why I wanted to go to the heavier drop shot.
So speaking of drop shots, this is an interesting video on how to, in my opinion, this is the easiest way to tie, because I know a lot of folks get scared, or not scared, but they're apprehensive when it comes to tying a drop shot hook because they want that hook to perfectly sit, straight out from the line. Well, I'm going to show you a knot that, to me, this is ironclad. So you feather this through a hook. Now, obviously, he's using a larger hook, but I have heard there is a trend, Jim, to use these larger hooks when it comes to the drop shot.
Well, see, if I was fishing for largemouths, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
Have that very hook,
the mystique. Yeah. So this is where he starts. So basically, he's feathered that line through, created a loop. Now, this is where it gets interesting. And I'm sure this is nothing new to you, Jim, but something definitely new to me. So he takes the hook and then he spins it like so. And he spins it 3 or 4 times and then basically pulls the ends tight. Have you ever seen this technique before, Jim?
I've seen it. I've never done it. In fact, I think I've watched this video.
This to me looks so simple. If you are a drop shot lover like I am, this seems to be the easiest way to tie a hook.
See, that's really heavy line too. I wouldn't want to be doing that with 6 or 8 pound line.
No, 100%.
You could easily damage the line. You know, it's another thing too is our buddy at Nishine there, Hiroshi.
Yeah.
He's got a drop shot hook out now that's supposed to be the end all.
So yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of folks that are in the know that know about.
Yeah, I'm sure Sparkus has been using it.
Yeah, well, he just mentioned actually, I tie drop shot on every drop except the Harish. Okay, interesting. Yeah, they are. He is definitely making waves when it comes to all of his stuff. Traditionally, and this is something that I love being able to plug our sponsors. This is obviously a traditional drop shot hook. Now you have different variations. You can get a longer shank, if you will, or whatever it is you want to call it.
That looks like a Lindy no snag sinker used to look like.
Well, it's so funny you say that because, Jim, I'm about to show you something that Powell Casting has come up with, and he calls it the dredge. And that, to me, is definitely exactly that. Now, we did...
They used to have them, too. They used to have them with a piece on the end that they fitted on.
Yep.
And had the rattles in it.
Yes.
So it was bumping with the rattles on the bottom to make noise.
Yeah. This is... I don't want to say snag-proof, because I don't believe anything is snag proof. But if you were to use a traditional one like this, and no offense to Ugly Boys Baits because they produce a lot of wonderful stuff, this new dredge system, I want to say cuts your snags in half because of the way that it glides over top of the structure. And of course, Brad, if you're not sure what weight you want, he's got these boxes put together, of course, with all the different size drop shots. That's available through POW, and of course our good buddy Bruce Downs at Ugly Boys. You can pick up whatever you need.
Bring me a couple of those when you come on Thursday, Scotty.
Well, I'm going to bring you the whole lot.
Maybe we'll tie one up on Wednesday night and get it in the lake.
We will definitely
drop shot largemouth.
100%, my friend.
100%. Woohoo!
Now, when it comes to drop shots, there's obviously different variations of how to tie the hook. Mark says I use a polymer knot and pass the tag through the eyelet. Yes, that works well too. That's actually the most traditional one of all the knots. I believe. Yeah, that's the more traditional ones. But that one, I have to say, I'm going to show it again just while Jim and I are talking. But I really love this. I think this is something that I think if you're a drop shot fanatic like I am, this is something you're going to use. It is so straightforward how this gentleman puts this through. And I want to say
True Turn Hooks had that one called the Standout.
Oh, right.
Drop shotting first started.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here and show you a picture.
This is from Mystery Tackle Box. Thanks to the folks over at Mystery Tackle Box. The other folks that we'd like to thank is Lunkerville. It actually is the reason that inspired me. That whole video of all the different types of presentations for bass. But again, at the end of the day, I want to know, folks, are you catching on drop shots? Are you catching all the species of fish that we're catching? Like, you catching bass, you catching walleye, you're catching panfish, toothy critter, pike, muskie, doesn't matter. Bless you. At the end of the day, drop shot, to me, there is no species of fish that you can't target with a drop shot. Would you agree, Jim?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, that's bless you. That to me, that's killer right there. That is killer. Nice, really nice knot. Really straightforward and easy.
That's the old Standout hook.
Yep, I remember that.
Remember that one?
Yep. Oh yeah.
And that did exactly what it said.
Mm-hmm.
And you could pivot that up and down if you let it go with the plastic. If you didn't have floating plastic, or if you did the opposite, would happen. It was really good when those guys were around big time. They used to have a huge presence in Canada. That was TTI and True Turn.
Yeah, True Turn. I remember True Turn. That was big. That was really big, actually, when it came out. Everybody couldn't wait to get one of those. And, of course, when it comes to the drop shot, I have said this to anybody who has listened. How I use the drop shot might be similar to that of a three-way jig or a Lindy rig. Drop shots, typically, as Jim has mentioned, you'll use a heavier weight. And the reason you use that heavier weight is it almost becomes an anchor for your entire presentation. And then Mark Elbeck showed me the proper way to use it because he said, that's interesting how you use it, Scott. That's not how you traditionally use it. And of course, everybody that does use it knows. I now, because of Mark, know as well. But it is deadly. No matter which way you use it, that kind of presentation where you have a suspended bait that is anchored to the bottom, I don't think there's much out there that can beat it. But
I remember catching some, maybe about 6-7 years ago, catching some giant smallmouth off the back of one of the islands in the St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
And what I did was I let the drop shot sit in the bed, and I would let the plastic lower down, and let the plastic go into the bed, and be sitting in the bed and move it around.
Yeah.
And they'd come right in as soon as it got into to where the eggs might be, they would eat it. And this was I think it was the 14th or 15th of August.
Jeez.
So
Now,
there's
Jim,
no way. Yeah, there's no way those fish are going to survive. The babies are going to live.
No, 100%.
And I'm fussy about fishing bed fish.
Yeah,
I still don't do it. I still don't do it.
It's a whole nother topic, and you know what? It's tough not to, especially if you're on the tournament trail, because like down in the States, it seems to be the time.
Well, they follow the spawn.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
When it comes to drop shot, and this was asked to me a couple times, when you decide the distance between your weight and the hook, some folks, depending on how suspended the fish are, will lengthen that. But do you try to mirror the top of vegetation at all? Is there anything that you like? Obviously, that video that I showed you of the bass, I mean, you don't have to tie this very, very high because the structure is so low. But
there's nothing there yet.
There's
if I
nothing
was fishing for smallmouth, I'd probably have it about 24, 30 inches in that range. If I was fishing for walleyes, I'd probably have it at maybe like 18 to 20.
Yeah.
Because walleyes, just the ones you're looking for when you're doing that are going to have a tendency to be on the bottom a little more.
Right.
So just make it like it isn't as much. They don't have to come up as far to get it. Just puts it right in their range. That type of thing. It's a pretty simple thing. And I got to think that for the most part, if you're within a foot of where it's 1 to 3 feet, it's they're going to see it.
Jeremy, great question. Absolutely great question. In your opinion, Jim, does hook color change anything on a drop shot rig?
That's a really good question. I know the whole purpose of drop shotting is to keep everything like. You don't see guys out with bright pink and chartreuse polka dotted drop shot baits. It's to keep everything as nonchalant and natural, just like the fluff. Like the fluff's the ultimate. It's all black. There's nothing different. It's small. It does nothing. You reel it. There's no Ricky Clun would call them negative cues. Fluff has no negative cue. A 6-inch plastic worm rigged on a black hook with a black sinker has no negative cues. A drop shot with a red hook, maybe the fish goes, whoa, that's a negative cue. And that's Ricky Clun's term. And it always seemed to be when there was something. And they were right down to, I remember the Lindners talking about that stuff years ago. And they were, remember Mr. Twister used to make tails with 3 white dots on them?
Yeah, you remember, yes.
They got down to the point where they actually thought that the number of dots was making a difference. Because they're on fish that are absolutely like, not biting.
Yeah.
They're having a hard time. They can see them on the graphs. This was before forward-facing sonar and all that stuff. They could see them plain as day sitting there this far off the bottom, just sitting down there. And, you threw a black one down or even a yellow one on a yellow head, you caught fish. You put one with polka dots down, they weren't going to eat it.
It's interesting.
That's that cue thing. So
100%.
Well, they had drop shot hooks that were lime and red and orange, and they still have bait hooks like that for walleyes, but walleyes seem to key a lot more on color. I don't think key on it, but they'll feed on it a lot more often. Yeah,
100%. Eric, great question. On a drop shot, do you use a swivel to prevent line twist? Now, Ed McKenzie, you have brought up one of the go-tos that I always use is the VMC.
Spin shot hooks are awesome.
Yeah, I use those as well. But I will say, after seeing that tying video, I might have a tendency to tie my own drop shots because that just looked too darn easy. I know Mark agreed. Mark Beeler, I'm going to be trying that out for sure. Yeah, this guy as well. Yeah. But in terms of A swivel. How important is it, Jim?
Well, if you use a spin shot hook, you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And I would say that in my lifetime, 75% of the drop shot fishing I've done has been done with a spin shot.
Hmm.
The first one was Bernard's stringies.
Mm-hmm.
He had it, then Mustad did it, and then BMC gathered it somehow. I don't know how all that works, but he had that, and because Dave sells the hooks, I was using. I thought they were great hooks. They're absolutely awesome hooks. I still have several bags of them out in the garage.
Yep.
And when I'm drop shotting, I'm using them, and you don't lose a lot of hooks when you're drop shotting. So
No.
it's, you lose a lot of sinkers in that, but yeah, no, it's something when it comes down to color. If I was just to use a straight swivel, no. If I was using a regular hook, like the way that hook just showed to tie that on like that, you probably wouldn't need that. You probably wouldn't need to worry about a swivel on that, because to get that all to turn the way it's up with the two things on it, you never know. It can't hurt. It can't hurt.
100%.
I know some guys that buy, I forget what they are, the number 24 ball bearing swivels.
Yes. Yeah.
So teeny.
Yeah.
And they use those on their drop shot rigs, so it's there. But yeah, no, you can definitely use it. It can't hurt.
Marcus, I do agree to a certain extent that spin shot hooks get tangled casting, especially when you're casting into the wind. They do have a tendency to get tangled, but
I never noticed that.
Only into the wind. If you're casting with the wind, you're fine. But yeah, sometimes what'll happen is that weight will come around and
I'd always be working into the wind.
Yeah.
That's just the way things are done. You don't drift as much, you don't have to. Yeah.
But Sparkus will run a lead of 4 feet from hook to weight.
Yeah.
And I know for smallies,
super clear water where he is. Yeah.
That can be a key.
And shallow,
100%. All right, folks, it's now on you. Let's empty up some of the floats and presentations and whatever it is that you guys are using when it comes to rigs. Corey has caught a lot of bass on a float rig, very similar to that for walleye. It's more of a 3-way rig, similar to what the Linders showed us.
Sounds like a catfish rig.
Yeah, catfish rig, absolutely. Fluff, Jim has mentioned fluff. Are there any other presentations or rigs that you guys use out there, you guys and gals use out there, that perhaps might be traditional, or maybe you've customized it a little bit? We'd love to see some of the stuff, or hear some of the stuff that you use as well, because at the end of the day, we're all here to learn. We're all here to figure it out. And Jim, I think we've just lambasted them with a whole bunch of stuff so far.
I'm looking forward now to drop shotting with you. It's going to be drop shot jig day.
Drop shot. Okay, let's do it. You know what? We're going to have lots of the trench. This actually came out of salmon fishing, believe it or not. So they came out with this, and the idea was a lot of salmon anglers love when their ball hits the bottom and stirs up the silt. But unfortunately, with a ball, you're going to lose it, and you might actually lose the whole.
So how heavy is that thing?
You've got half ounce, you've got quarter ounce. Yeah, you've got. I think everything up to 1 ounce is what Brad makes with the dredge. But as I said, those dredges that he used for salmon, those salmon guys can't get enough of them, and stirring up that bottom every once in a while, it certainly does a lot of good. Are you guys hitting the St. Lawrence? We will not be hitting the St. Lawrence. We're going to be hitting Sealy's Bay, which is, to me, far enough for both of us to go. But anywhere there's fish, right, Jim? That's all.
So Hong Lock.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we better drive down.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, Jim, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up, add, that we didn't talk about or we missed?
Think horizontal. If it ain't working, stop doing it. I had my shirt on today.
Attaboy.
I had my shirt on earlier today. I spilled something on it, so I had to put a clean one on.
All right. Well, now we're going to get to what Mark wanted to talk about, which, of course, was the tandem. If you haven't seen it, we don't have a video here, unfortunately.
You mean a donkey rig?
The donkey rig,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is something that is extremely productive for smallmouth. I'm not going to suggest for a second that you're not going to be able to catch a largie, a pike. I'm sure we'll go crazy over walleye if you can get it down deep enough, or it's early in the season. I'm sure that will be something in terms of how it's tied. It's not something that we're familiar with, Mark. So I apologize for not getting a video together for you, but I will say this: 2 or 3 episodes ago, Jim and I talked about it. I did share a video then. I'll try and find it for you.
Google donkey rig. Once you tie it up once, it's good to go.
Yeah. Bucktail. Oh yes, bucktail on the bottom. That's a great presentation, and I appreciate this, guys. As I said, it used to drive my buddies crazy when we go out fishing. They'd always be at the front casting the whatever, and I'd be off the back looking at the screen, looking at the fish finder, and just bouncing that hair jig off bottom. And we'd travel around, I don't know how much of an area, but let's just say it was 100 meters. They'd catch the odd one, and me just bouncing that hair jig off the bottom, I'd have like 3 or 4. And I was really doing nothing other than just, so I can't say enough about hair. And is there a good time that's better than another when it comes to hair, Jim? Or would you use hair throughout the year?
Well, sometime between noon and 12 noon the next day. It's pretty good.
I love it, man. You're awesome. Well, Jim, as always, my friend, I can't thank you enough. You've managed to fill gaps that we missed.
Hey, I'll put a memo in those 2 guys' files too about this.
Yeah, there's probably
we're talking payroll deduction here now.
I think we're gonna have to put them on a PIP, some kind of discipline. 100%. No, just kidding. We love the fact that you guys are able to spend time elsewhere and do what you do to further the passion of angling. And we miss you, but we totally understand why. And we look forward to seeing you not next Monday, but the Monday after. So we want everybody to enjoy their Thanksgiving, family, friends, and lots of fun. That's what we're hoping for. So we're going to take next Monday off. But in the meantime, Jim, we're going to spend a great day of fishing on Thursday, and I cannot friggin' wait, dude.
Boom shakalaka.
All right, my friend. You take care. We'll see you then.
Take care, people. Be safe.
Attaboy, Jim. All right, that's the show. Thanks so much for all of the great feedback. Thanks for your questions. I know Jim's going to be busy the next 48 hours answering some of these suggestions, some of the customizations that you guys come up with. At the end of the day, as I said, if you haven't learned anything tonight, I'm sorry. That's what tonight was set up to do, was to teach some people how to drop shot that may not have seen it, Nikos and all these other different kinds of rigs, and of course create some content and good conversation when it comes to the use of these. Because at the end of the day, they're not just bass rigs. These are multi-species presentations that can be used to catch a ton of fish. At the end of the day, it is the end. I thank you so much for all of you for coming, spending a Monday with us. Again, we are going to be taking next Monday off for Thanksgiving, so I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving, and a tip of the hat to all the moms, dads, and the rest of the families that do so much to support us and support our passion for angling and allow us to do this. On that note, Dave, it's time to take us away. Have yourselves a great week. As Jim said, be safe, but have fun. All the best. Take care.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.